Mike Whitbeck, one of the co-founders of Blueprint and IncomeXpert. We've been in the business now about 10 years. What our software does, just in case you haven't heard of Blueprint or you're not a client, but most people on here are generally clients, is that, I call making loans like manufacturing. Like, I'm in the Detroit, Michigan area. We build cars around here. So when you build a loan, there's all kinds of different pieces, right? There's title, there's income, there's loan, there's appraisals, there's flood certs, there's realtors. So in the manufacturing process, where you're putting everything together to make a quote unquote loan, we do income calculations. So that's what our part of the assembly line is that we specialize in income calculations. We've done 2.6 million calculations through a couple hundred different clients. So we're very good at doing income calculations. We've done them for a while. We're agency compliant. One of the things and why we're doing this webinar today for our clients is that, there's always these changes. And one of our goals for 23, 24 is improve our communication about what the program's doing instead of just sending out quick blurbs about updates, especially when they're kind of major like this. We want to be more informative, and we're going to do it in a webinar format. So about once a month, we're going to come out and we're going to explain some features that we do and some compliance things we're working on so that you guys know what's going on with IncomeXpert. Because as an underwriter myself, I want to trust the software I'm using, and we want to make sure we build trust on here. So I'm going to switch screens here real quickly. Hope I don't mess it up. And I want to show you IncomeXpert just in case you're not there. IncomeXpert, right? So when you log into IncomeXpert, this is going to be the web version. We do have Encompass integrations and a couple other integrations as well. But when you log into IncomeXpert, is a 4-step process. So I log in, I want to create a loan. I create a loan, it brings me inside of a loan, and we're going to do 4 steps. We're going to name the borrower, whatever the name is. And many of you guys are already clients, so you know this stuff. This is we have a lot of people that aren't clients, just to give you a quick update for 2 or 3 minutes, then you'll know what we're talking about as far as the way it works. I put in my borrower's last 4 social security number, and then I want to go ahead and add in any kind of income type. Now, Blueprint IncomeXpert will handle any income type there is. So let's say I just want to do, a Schedule C. I'll just put in business, name it, insert it. So tab 1 is your borrower. What do you want? And I can have up to 4 borrowers. 1 or 2 year income analysis. I can do Fannie, Freddie, FHA, VA, USDA guidelines. I move to the second income tab, the tab right here. And then this is why we call it expert is like having a long-time underwriter sitting right next to you. So I go ahead and hit, open it up. And it will tell you, okay, you're doing a Schedule C. What's on line 6, line 12? And, with this system, when you just do the work yourself, that's expert. You type in what you see in the tax returns. Hey, I see $5,000 depreciation in 22. Last year, there was 4,000. And so on, right? You just put in the numbers. You don't need to know what to add, what to subtract. It knows what to add and what to subtract. And then you get a final result here. So I put all my numbers in and I hit my save calculate, and IncomeXpert will very quickly tell you what they made 22, what they made 21, what they made, average this year, last year, and that will tell you what the correct number is. It'll recommend. I won't say tell you, we recommend, because as an underwriter, there might be special circumstances. And of course, then REO is in the 3rd tab, which we're going to be focusing on today. And then you get your report. So let's go through what the changes we made, which are specifically about the REO section. So I'm going to go ahead and switch back to what I was showing you guys previously. Okay, so let's talk about what changes we put in here. Now, this is where, having just a spreadsheet or trying to keep it up in your head, which again, I've been underwriting for a long time. I've got a lot of stuff stuck up here, but I'm almost 55, so things start fading a little bit. But, when you just use spreadsheets or form fills, they're not doing all the things you're supposed to do as an underwriter. Our system is checking over 200 underwriting rules and processes. Things like the trending analysis, continuous of income, partnership return information. What about when income is declining or gaining? And like today, what if the REO has a special circumstance? So we need to know these things, and spreadsheets and form fills just can't keep up. We need software more advanced. It's kind of like, do you pull out your atlas in your car when you're driving around? You can, and it's very usable. But is it easier just to use your phone and just say, hey, Siri or hey, Google or whatever, and then draw it, right? It'll figure it all out. It'll figure the rules. It'll add the traffic in. So it's just much better. And that's kind of where we stand in the industry. All right, went through the 4 screens, but now let's focus on what the changes really were. Okay. So there was a rental income change from Fannie Mae, and it was announced back on October 4th. And the key thing about the change that they did was like, hey, there was rules for subject properties. And what they did is they expanded it to non-subject properties. And so we had to update our calculator. And the key phrase in that update is this. It says, this is right from Fannie Mae. We align the use of rental income that can be served for qualifying purposes for the non-subject properties in line, basically new non-subject properties, like you just got it or it's in service, in line with the subject property. So there used to be a set of rules for subject and non-subject, right? You kind of had to know them, know what you can add, which we're going to walk over today. The guides don't go into effect till January 1st. You can use them now. They always allow you to use them early, but you have to do them as of applications of January 1st, 2024. So this is where we had to add some new things to our software. So let's kind of draw out what's in the guideline. I'm going to call it red or green, yellow, red, like a stoplight, and then show you in the calculator how it's actually doing the work. So it says, hey, here's how you calculate property for each rental property, because you got to think about them individually, right? I mean, we do a summary of non-subject rental properties, but each one has its own special circumstance. So when I go through there and say, okay, let's start with the green, I can use all of the rental income. So how would I qualify for that? So the question, the way it's laid out in the guidelines says this: if the borrower, and then N the rental income is, and then qualifying purposes. So those are three statements. So if the borrower currently owns a residence or has current housing expense. So for me, what that has meant and what I've trained underwriters to look for is you have rent. Like you can show me a lease agreement and evidence you're paying rent. So you have a housing expense. All right. So I've got a housing expense, or I currently own a principal residence, and has at least 1 year history receiving rental income, or at least 1 year of documented property management from either the subject or non-subject. So again, it's combined. They treat them the same now. Then it says there's no restrictions. So if I have a $2,000 a month lease or showing it on my Schedule E, I can fully use it because I have these two qualifying events. I also qualify for full rental income if I don't have a current housing expense, right? I don't have a rental or a current housing expense. I'm sorry, if I'm not renting or own a primary, but I do have experience renting that property for 1 year. Now you can do this. I'll show you a few different ways in the guidelines in a moment. Now this is for non-subject properties with service for a year. You can still use the full rental income. So basically what they're saying is we don't want inexperienced landlords getting experience or income anymore. Now, if you guys are maybe not sure, a couple like years ago, I wouldn't say it's been 10 years, but maybe about that long, the biggest concern for an underwriter was that you were buying a primary and misleading people that it was a primary when it was going to be a rental. Well, guess what? With the way the rules changed over the years, the fraud now is you say it's a primary, or you say it's a rental when it's really your primary. Because if you get rental income, you can afford the property, but you couldn't afford to live there yourself. So there's been a big uptake in reverse rental fraud. So you're calling things rentals and they're not. You can't afford to live there. Now, why would somebody do that? They're going to put more of a down payment down. They're going to pay higher rate. But yeah, they get the house. They still get the house though. So this is why the agencies have really started cracking down on this reverse rental fraud. And you can see this in the guidelines. All right, so the next situation, I call it the yellow X, right? The yellow, you can use some of it. Now, here's the situation. If the borrower currently owns a principal residence, but has less than 1 year history of receiving rental income from the related property, or you having property management period, right? And it's a subject property, you can basically wash things out, right? So what it says here is that you cannot have, if this is your subject property, investment property, you can only offset the PITI. If it's $1,000, and even if you got $4,000 a month in rent, the best you can do is zero it. And what it says here, limit to cash flow. Now for the non-subject property, this is again the change. They now applied that rule, which is always there, to non-subject properties. Same exact rule. You get a wash, so you get partial. I call this the yellow mode. Now the red mode is you don't have experience, or you're not, you're living somebody with no rent agreement, or you have no principal residence, and you have no experience, right? So no principal residence, and you do not have current housing expense. the subject property cannot be used and the non-subject property cannot be used, right? So this is where you got some problems at. This is the reverse rental fraud that they're trying to prevent. Okay, so what do we got that we have to do in the system now? So if you're, well, one more thing, we need to define how you define your rental experience. So underneath the guidelines, it does say, how do you confirm rental property insurance? So if I look on there, you have to obtain one of the following. So when you're sending your loans into FNMA, what they're going to look for is the following information: a recent tax return. So you're going to look at Schedule 1 and Schedule E. You're going to see rental income and see you have 365 days of experience there. So I look at there, I have a property, I have 365 days of any property. So I would qualify. Now, remember, it says, or the experience, you got to have the property management experience or the rental experience for that property. Now, what if it got, let's say my first rental or this property was rented out June of 22. Well, it doesn't show 365, and I don't have evidence that it's, I've had it for a year. Now you could say, well, I got 6 months from last year, and here's my lease agreement that's currently in effect once I reach 12 months. All right, so that's where I've got my 12 for 12 months. Now there's this other exception, like you had it in service for a while, you took it out of service for major renovations, and you put it back in service. Now, this whole back in service thing has been there for a while for rental income. I personally own 2 rental properties. I have a condo and a house, and I'm my primary residence. And I have 2 years experience with them. I started buying these rentals in 2020. So I lived in one and started renting it, bought another one, started renting it on there. So I would qualify all out. But I did have my property out of service because I renovated the kitchen, the family room, everything was a mess for like 2 months because I did some of the work myself. I'm not chipping, joining gains. I'm not as fast as they are. So, I don't have to apply those rules because I didn't need to get a new loan there, but I would have had to worry about it. And this is a different topic, but basically what they're saying is I could have shown I was renting before and I was renting after, and I had 12 months experience. So that's the key takeaway is, do you have a primary residence? And do you have the proper history? Okay. Now in Blueprint, so I screenshot a couple things to make things easier. I'm going to show you these green, yellow, red situations. So when you're in the rental calculator, and I got my lease agreement up, and I got my rental property, we're just going to be talking about non-subject properties, and I got $2,000 a month coming in for rents. The standard process is take 25%, which would mean I get to use 1,500, of the 2,000. So you take 25% off for vacancies. I got my mortgage payment of 1,000, right? And then my number would be 500. 2,000 times 75%, 1,500 minus PITI equals net rental property of 500. What you're going to see now is these boxes up here confirming both of those questions that you saw I just put in the guidelines. Do you have 12 months of property management experience, right, with that property or others? And do you own a primary principal residence? Now, we're going to reword this a little bit to say own or have a housing expense. When we first made it, I think we need to explain that. We always refer back the guidelines, and there is a level of our software where we can't write out paragraphs, right? It just gets all over the place. This is a really tight coding area. So we're going to try to word that and say primary and maybe fix it or rent a residence, just so, again, refer back to the guidelines. So I've checked yes for both those questions. So as the underwriter in the file, I have confirmed that information with documentation in the file. So now I can take the $500 rental income. Now, what happens when they only have property management experience and it's not? Well, you can still qualify. Remember, there was the 2 different boxes. If you don't have or own a principal residence, but you have the rental experience, you still get the rental income. Good news, right? Awesome. There we go. Now, the partial, the yellow, if I don't have property rental experience, if I don't have property rental experience, I can only wash, right? So I put here that I don't have my property rental experience, which is the key thing here. And it's like, well, 2,000, my 25% vacancy factor, 1,500 is the number. I minus my PITI. I should have $500, but guess what? All I can do is wash. So I get the yellow, I get to offset it, which is good. It's a neutral to borrowers, right? So if you have some rental experience, you get a neutral. And then the red would be that you don't have either. So I can't check either box, and now I have to eat the whole payment. So even if you put in the rental revenue and it has all the same numbers, our system is following the Fannie Mae rule that says, sorry, you can't use any as rental income. Your PITI is 1,000. You have to be able to pay for the 1,000. So pretty much it as far as the changes go. So I know, like I said, we booked an hour, and I should have probably set for 30. So I always make sure I have time on there. But these will go in effect January 1st. Now, what I didn't show you is if you put, Schedule E in, it'll do the same thing. Now, we are pausing for a little bit. We're going to probably push out here in a couple days, is the yellow neutral when you have a Schedule E. It's going to still not let you have the income. We're going to fix that button as we get a bit closer to those. But what we didn't want to do is affect current loans in process. So right now, the system defaults to both boxes checked. Once we hit January 1st and you start a loan, we're going to default to both boxes unchecked. And what I want to just go back a couple slides and show you what we mean by that. So right now, when you come in, the boxes will always be checked because the rules are not in effect yet for non-subject property. So we're just following the old rules. But when you create your loan in Blueprint, IncomeXpert, on January 1st, New Year's Day, if you're working, I hope you're not, enjoy your day off, right? And these will be checked to not being used. Now we're going to send emails out in December 1st, reminding everybody, and then we're going to also put the rules in as of January 1st. Now I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. And, again, just a few more features about Blueprint. So if you saw this software and you're like, wow, this is pretty cool. This is way better than Income Spreadsheet, right? Remember, we're built for teams. We can handle, we have clients that send us 6, 8, 10,000 loans a month. We have most of our clients send us a few hundred loans a month. But we can work with teams, small teams. We have all kinds of auditing information, or basically audit controls in place, timestamps on our reports. We have no additional charge. Like when you pay, it's not per income type. It's basically, are you using the upload feature, which is a little more expensive, where we do the work for you, or are you doing the do it for yourself or do it with us kind of thing, where you put the numbers in? We don't charge by the income type. We charge by the loan. And we do keep the information up to 4 years, because in the Fannie Freddie world, they can do recourse back if you don't have day one and stuff for the first couple of years, where Freddie, or I know the government, legally, I think it's 7 years, but after 4, it should be a pretty clean loan on there. In case you don't know how to get a hold of us, just one more time, and then I'll go ahead and try to start answering some questions after this. But the bottom line is, hey, come to our website, getblueprint.io, right? And then after, if you need to email us or ask questions, or you want a demo link sent, just send us an email at info@getblueprint.io. Just email us up and say, hey, I was on the webinar with Mike, and I wanted to see get a demo or whatever. We have we'll email you a link to a pre-recorded demo. It's not about rental, it's about the whole system. It has a pricing example link. So again, our pricing's right on the web, just unlike our competitors, right? If you go to our website, we show you exactly what it costs, full transparency pricing. There's no sticker shock. It's a very affordable solution. Okay. All right, let me go ahead and I will go ahead and pause this webinar.